Hey there, welcome to the MLB DFS build. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. We're going to go over this tiny-ass 5-game slate over at DraftKings for the MLB DFS slate on Thursday, August 22nd. Hey, we handed out some pretty good advice yesterday because the Yankees smashed, and we also talked about the Dodgers being a low-owned fun stack, and they also went nuclear. And I believe most of our pitchers worked out too. Yeah. Well, the Angels didn't, so there's that. But hey, can't win them all. Can't get them all right. If we knew everything, we'd be millionaires. But hey, let's get it again tonight. We have a 5-game slate. These obviously always go super well. But if we use logic and at sometimes don't use logic, we can win. So Taylor, first game, we got Reds and Pirates at PNC Park. It's a pitcher park until it's not. We always call it PNC Coors because I swear to God, every time I ignore a game in this park, it goes absolutely off. It shouldn't today, though, because we have Paul Skeens taking on the Reds and Nick Lodolo taking on the Pirates. I like both the pitchers here quite a bit. Obviously, Skeens at 9.9K looks awesome. Expensive, but relative to slate, doesn't mean shit. He's going to be chalky, but he should be. I did not check the ownership on Lodolo. Have you seen the ownership for him? Let me pull that up just to be safe. But anyway,
I'm seeing like 20-ish on him.
Yeah, so I don't mind that at all. I don't love playing guys in this game, in the same game. But there's only 5 games, so I don't really care about that. He's 8K. He's a good price. Pirates whiff 28.5% of the time. Prefer Skeens. He's the target for sure. Don't want the offenses, but I also like Lodolo. How about you?
Yeah, both are great, obviously. I wouldn't say either is the SP1. I think we'll get to him later, but yeah, obviously there's
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear because Lodolo's 8K, so it's good matchup and all that. I don't mind him at all. Skeens, if we get a full leash, looks great. I'm not sure we do get a full leash on him. The Pirates are out of it now. They've kind of fallen out of it the last couple weeks or so. They've kind of hinted at maybe kind of ramping him down. Obviously, he's a rookie. He's never pitched this much in a season at this level. Obviously, he's never pitched this level before. But it is a small slate, so it's not something I'm really going to get tied down to. I'm sure I'm going to play him a lot. I just do have some concern that we could see, instead of 90 to 100 pitches, we could see 80 to 85. But even that 80 to 85 pitches for Skeens is still going to make him a top 3 option on the slate.
Yeah, and we'll get to the other guys in a little bit. The thing is, though, if that is going to lower his ownership, that makes me really, really interested in Skeens. I think if a 5-game slate...
I don't think it will, unless we hear something confirmed, because he's going to be really chalky, assuming we don't hear about pitch limit. If we do, obviously, it'll be like a crochet thing, and everyone will off him. But
yeah, if it's going to be that egregious, then... If it's that egregious crochet level of limitation, then yes, I agree with you 100%. If it's going to be to the point where we can feel pretty good about even 75 to 85 pitches, I think I'd still be interested in using him quite a bit, especially since I would imagine that news would lower his ownership. But yeah, it's warranted for sure. Kevin Rosenthal just said that. So, oh my gosh, my cat is on my leg with his claws. Okay. Got a kitten and not always easy to manage. Okay, so we're in agreement here for the most part. Definitely not targeting the offenses. Obviously, on a 5-game slate, if Skeens is mega chalk or Lodolo is mega chalk, you can absolutely sprinkle in some leverage with Pirates and Reds. It's just not optimal. All right, Angels and Jays. Speaking of optimal, Griffin Canning taking on Toronto. Love the Toronto bats here. I think Griffin Canning, because he's 5K on a 5-game slate, you can consider that. But I definitely sided with the Jays here. And then who's even starting? Ryan Burr? Is that the official? Oh, he's opening the game, so who gives a shit? Okay, so Yarbrough is going to be the guy behind him. I guess he would be okay if we felt confident, but the 7.7K price tag's a little bit steep. I think for me, this is not playing Angels and I am playing the Jays.
I'm playing both. I'm not scared of Yarbrough, just a low strikeout lefty that's going to come into the game, we think. And it's a limited slate. There are good pitchers, so there are limited spots you can feel decent at attacking. For what it's worth, LA has been better against lefties on the season. So, guys like Neto, Hoppy, same guys we talked about yesterday, Ward, for example, I think are okay. As of now, Toronto looks like the top stack on the slate. Canning's just not been the same guy he was last year. Strikeout rate way down. All his other numbers significantly worse. It's not a great lineup once you get past the Varsho, Guerrero, Springer trio at the top, but pretty cheap, so you can pay up for pitching and pay down for them, and I think it's a pretty obvious build.
Yeah, would you say they are the top chalk stack of the slate?
I haven't really looked at hitting ownership, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. Yeah, I think we're mostly in agreement there for sure. I'm okay with the Angels because it's not a scary matchup. It's just the Angels themselves haven't, made me very confident in them as of late. In particular, last night. Yeah, I know. All right, moving on here, we got the Phillies and Braves, two very capable offenses. The Braves will be taking on Christopher Sanchez, and we have the Phillies taking on Spencer Schwellenbach. So Schwellenbach in a vacuum looks really good, and the price is fine. But the Phillies obviously are not a fun team to go against. They have a 164 collective ISO, and he offers a 194 ISO to lefties, which is not good when you face guys like Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber. So I think the Phillies are fine here, but because of the slate, and especially if Skeens is somebody we can't end up using, I would have a little bit of interest in Schwellenbach. But for the most part, I'm kind of not that interested in this game overall.
Yeah, everything's kind of middle of the pack. I think you can make a case for stacking both teams or playing Schwellenbach because he's 8,500 and a pretty good strikeout guy, but not the most compelling matchup for him. And then Sanchez is kind of a low strikeout lefty, ground ball guy. The Atlanta offense is pretty watered down these days without Riley, Acuna, and Albies, but still not a guy I generally flock to on the pitching side. So no real need IMO.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say you can't use the Braves. It's a small slate. You can do whatever you want. But Sanchez just isn't really a fun guy to pick on for DFS. Doesn't walk you, doesn't give up power. He doesn't whiff anybody, so you don't really want to play him. But I don't really see the ceiling. The Braves are talented still. They can go off, but I just don't think I want to do it. I think I kind of want to avoid this game beyond Schwellenbach. All right, two more games to go here. We got Houston visiting the Orioles. Spencer Arrighetti, the bane of my freaking existence. Of course, he had two god-level games, and then the last game, he totally shat the bed with 9 fantasy points against the freaking White Sox. Come on! Ridiculous. So anyways, he actually is somewhat in play at 7.5K just because who he's been lately, but I don't want to use anybody against the O's. So I don't really want him. At the same time, I'm not super into Baltimore. I think by the numbers, they look good. He's given up a 165 ISO and almost a 12% walk rate against lefties. They have what, 3, 4, 5, 7? Good Lord. Okay, maybe I do want the Orioles. So yeah, Orioles look okay. Houston against Corbin Burns. I think you can do Houston just because Burns has not been good lately at all. But on the year, he doesn't walk too many batters and he doesn't give up a ton of power. So I don't know, man. I just think this is kind of a stay away zone for me personally. I think if I was going to do anything, I think I would target Arrighetti with the Orioles.
Yeah, it's two good pitchers. They're both, I think you can say they're underpriced for who they are, but the matchups are pretty rough. If I'm getting anything, it's probably Houston because I think Burns by default will catch some ownership on a small slate at sub 9K. And like you said, he's been a little bit shakier of late. Strikeouts are not what they used to be several years ago. So it's not comfortable, but I don't feel a lot of conviction for a single offense on this slate, maybe outside of Toronto, which
is and that feels really good, right?
So yeah, I think you can stack anyone. Baltimore, of course, Arrighetti's got control issues that can come back to haunt you if you walk 3 guys and then give up a home run, for example. So they look good. I'm not really getting to them right now because they're pricey and I'm paying up for pitching instead, but no qualms with it really.
Yeah, this is actually a really interesting slate as far as just picking a stack that you feel really good about that isn't going to be chalky because there's only 5 games. I mean, you can automatically be like, okay, Jays look great, but screw the Jays, and I'm going to go with the Phillies or I'm going to go with the Astros, and then there's a good chance those stacks are just completely unowned because of who they're facing, right? So it's ugly, but it also could be really, really fun. All right, last game of the night, we got the Mets and Padres. Dylan Cease looks like the best pitcher on the board at 9.4K. He takes on New York, and on the other side, Luis Severino takes on the Padres, who never, ever, ever strike out. So Severino doesn't look that good, but I also am not that interested in the Padres, especially in this park. The only thing I'd say here is obviously Cease looks great, but the Mets do have a collective 181 ISO against righties. And he has given up 174 ISO to lefties. He does give up a bit of power at times. In general, it's tough to get away from Cease. But here's the other thing: he's like 54% owned. So I think a light sprinkling of Met stacks on a tiny 5-game slate could be a fun way to end the night, or horrible. But I am going to do it personally.
Yeah, I'm gonna go pretty hard with the Mets. It's going to be a classic both sides situation where Cease will be my highest owned pitcher, but in many of the non-Cease lineups I play in a 20 max, for example, I will have Mets. So he's going to be the chalkiest pitcher on the board on a small slate by default. The team he's facing is going to be under-owned and, instant leverage right there. I agree with you on the other side, not really getting to Severino, not really getting to the Padres. I think the Padres are fine. Severino being one of the weaker pitchers on the slate, strikeout stuff is completely dried up from where it used to be. So it's not really a bad spot. They're just not the most exciting offense in the world in general.
That's very true. All right, before we wrap up here, let's just summarize real quick. Your number one offense, ownership be damned, is
Toronto, but that feels really fucking bad.
Yeah, I would agree though. Toronto is in the best spot on paper, but honestly, my number 2 is the Mets. I love Cease in general, like in a vacuum, but if he's going to be, well, right now he's at 51%, but still, he's going to be crazy owned on a 5-game slate. The Mets are totally capable. Why not? Just be very overweight on the Mets. But yeah, I would still definitely get a lot of exposure to Cease regardless. All right, as far as pitcher goes, I think you already said it. Cease is your number 1. Going into the slate, Skeens was my number 1. As long as we can feel good about the limitation not being egregious, I actually still like him because I have interest in the Mets. So that's probably where I'm going to be at. I don't mind going in with Skeens and Lodolo in the same game and then stacking Mets with Jays.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Sounds good overall. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this helped you out a little bit. If it did, please give this video a like and also consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching and good luck.